Caregiving can sometimes feel like an impossible struggle. Caregivers may be torn between taking care of loved ones and trying to maintain balance in life. The good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. The Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson is here to focus on the conversation of caring. You're not alone. In fact, you're in exactly the right place to share stories and learn tips and resources to help you and your loved ones. So now, please welcome the host of The Caring Generation, Pamela D. Wilson.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert. I'm your host. You're listening to the Caring Generation radio program, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network, Channel 100, and Tune In Radio. The Caring Generation focuses on conversations about health, well-being, caring for ourselves and loved ones, all tied together with humor and laughter that are essential to being a caregiver. Tips for caregivers and aging adults are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, and in my caregiving blog, it is called the Caring for Aging Parents blog. I'm excited. Our topic for this radio show is special needs adults, adults with disabilities. Do you ever wonder what happens to children who are born with special needs when they become special needs adults? How do parents care for adults with disabilities? What happens to special needs adults as they age? Can special needs adults work? Can adults with disabilities live alone? And how do special needs adults fit into society? Then, what about sex, having children, and marriage? My guest for this program is the amazing Dr. Temple Grandin. The interview will inspire you and give you hope about ways to support children with autism and other disabilities. Dr. Grandin is a past board member of the directors of the Autism Society of America, and she lectures and teaches about her experience with autism. She is also a very accomplished professor of animal science at Colorado State University and a pioneer in improving the handling and welfare of farm animals. Her education includes a bachelor's at Franklin Pierce College, a master's in animal science at Arizona State University, and a PhD in animal science from the University of Illinois. Dr. Grandin will join us in the next part of this show. Let's return to our conversation about special needs adults with disabilities. I want to begin with information about special needs adults for our caregivers who are listening who may not be familiar. Then, in the second half of the show, we will get in and talk about what happens when special needs children become adults with disabilities and how parents manage through a variety of life situations when they are the power of attorney or when they are a court-appointed guardian. I'm tongue-twisted tonight. My expertise in this area is from being a court-appointed guardian and a power of attorney for the elderly and special needs adults. I was in the role that many parents find themselves when they are in a legal guardian position for special needs adults. It's not easy. It can be very complicated. The system sometimes questions parents about the care that they provide to their children. Some parents should be questioned because they may not be providing adequate care, but other parents who are doing an amazing job are persecuted. And I know that persecuted is a strong word, but if you are listening and you're a parent for special needs adults, you might know what I'm talking about. Human service organizations can sometimes victimize parents. I know this because as a court-appointed guardian, I had my motives questioned many times by organizations with staff who call themselves advocates. In some cases, I legally had to prove that it was the human service organization staff and their advocates, or other adults with disabilities under their supervision who were emotionally or financially taking advantage of my client who was the special needs adult. Situations that parents would never dream of happen. I do want to qualify this and say that it does depend on the degree of the disability. Some special needs adults can live relatively independently. Others require a great deal of care and supervision provided by parents and sometimes through the involvement and oversight of human service organizations. Let's start with the background and the basics of children who become special needs adults. Special needs adults are children with mental, emotional, physical, or learning disabilities who need help with communication, movement, self-care, decision-making. Some of the diagnoses that you might hear that are associated with adults with disabilities include autism, ADHD, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, epilepsy, a traumatic brain injury, or any brain injury. And then we have visual or hearing disabilities, reading, learning, and intellectual disabilities, speech and language impairments, and emotional disturbances, which is why it's difficult for elderly parents to be caregivers. Special needs are usually identified at birth or in the first few years of life, but they also can be diagnosed later, between the ages of 6 to 17, as children get into school and they are working and struggling to keep up. They can't keep up with their peers, and parents notice that something is not right. It's common for parents of special needs children to experience a lot of emotions, just like regular caregivers: denial, guilt, anger, sadness, anxiety, and fear, and eventually acceptance and hope. Parents can be in denial, or sometimes they can blame themselves because they think they did something to cause the disability. This usually is not the case. Being a good parent and worrying about how others will treat their children is another concern. In 1975, Congress enacted the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, it's Public Law 94-142, to support states in protecting the rights and meeting the needs of infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities. That law today is known as IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Children who are screened and confirmed to have a disability are assigned a service coordinator and an IFSP, which means Individualized Family Service Plan. You'll know that there are a lot of acronyms when it comes to this type of support. The support provided relates to education, health, medical treatment, and daily living skills for mental, emotional, physical, learning, and other types of disabilities. Statistics from the National Survey of Children with Special Health Care Needs confirms that 12.8% of children under age 18 have special needs. Children with special needs are present in 20% of households, so you probably know someone who has a special needs child. Special needs children have average lifespans. They grow into being adults. Many of them are very, very successful with the help and support of their elderly parents. Up next, Dr. Temple Grandin joins us to share her story of being diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, and she was unable to speak. She offers hope, inspiration, and advice to help special needs children and adults succeed in life and work. She's going to have some great advice for parents who are caregivers. She is well published. She's published several hundred industry publications, book chapters, technical papers on her lifelong career specialty of animal handling and animal welfare. And she is a professor at Colorado State University. You can follow and like the Caring Generation radio show on my website, which is PamelaDWilson.com. On there, you'll find my caregiving blog, my Caring for Aging Parents blog, all the podcasts of these radio shows. I have a caregiving library on there for family caregivers, but also for professional caregivers. A lot of helpful articles are there. This is Pamela D. Wilson on the Caring Generation. You're with me live on the BBM Global Network, Channel 100, and TuneIn Radio. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Renaissance woman, trailblazer, maverick. Those are just some of the words to describe Tashandra Poulard, owner and CEO of House of Virgo Entertainment, LLC, a woman minority veteran-owned entertainment company based in Washington, D.C. Ms. Poulard served 10 years honorably in the United States Navy and departed from active duty to pursue her dreams of becoming an entertainment mogul. House of Virgo Entertainment offers script writing, producing, directing, DJ services, editing, and more. They cater to businesses, corporations, college students, working professionals, aspiring artists, and nonprofit organizations, and employ veterans of the armed forces. Tashandra Poulard is pioneering the way we view media and taking her brand global. Visit her at www.houseofvirgoentertainment.com or call 281-515-3000. 3740 and like her on Facebook at House of Virgo Entertainment, LLC.
Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert. I'm your host. You're listening to The Caring Generation, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network, Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. With us is Dr. Temple Grandin, professor of animal science at Colorado State University, a pioneer in animal welfare, and a past member on the board of directors of the Autism Society of America. Dr. Grandin, thank you for joining us.
It's really good to be here.
So what advice do you have for parents who might tend to shelter their children, parents who may not want to take them out in public because they're a little overprotective?
Well, my mother had a really good instinct on how to stretch me. When I was a little kid, I had speech till age 4, got into really good speech therapy, but she expected me to learn how to eat properly, sit at the table, learn how to take turns at games. You have to stretch just slightly outside the comfort zone. You don't throw them in the deep end of the pool. I like kind of visual analogies. But you've got to, if you don't stretch, then they just don't develop. And there's a tendency to overprotect. I remember one mom of a really smart teenage kid that was labeled with autism, actually a very good student in school, and he had never shopped. He hadn't learned any life skills. This is where I see a major issue, is not teaching enough practical skills like shopping and bank account.
That makes a lot of difference. So I've heard you say, I've watched a lot of your videos, that parents have to work with the weaknesses and the strength of children. But how do parents know what is the strength and what's the weakness and what they should focus on?
Well, when I was in 3rd grade, it became very obvious that I had trouble with reading. That was a weakness. And Mother taught me with phonics. First thing you do is you start with a book that's worth reading. And she'd read out loud, get to a really fun, interesting part, and then stop and have me sound out a few words. That was a weakness. But she also recognized my ability in art, and that was always encouraged. And I had a tendency to just draw the same horse head over and over again. And she said, well, let's draw it stable. Let's draw the entire horse. You want to take that art skill and broaden it so it's not so fixated.
So it sounds like your mom was amazing. Your mom worked a lot with you. So let's talk about school. You have the Temple Grandin School. Is there any type of way to decide whether a child should go to a specialized school with other people with disabilities, or if they should just go into, like grade school and school with everybody else?
Well, actually, the Temple Grandin School isn't my school. It's named after me, and I've worked with them. Just want to straighten that out. I went to a small, regular elementary school, and I want to see kids mainstream as much as possible. There are some older kids, and I was one of them, where a regular school didn't work for me. Big high school was a disaster of bullying and teasing. But then there'll be another kid that will go to that big high school and get involved with band or theater or some other thing, and it will work just fine. In fact, when I was out in the construction sites in the 80s and the early 90s, we were working on installing equipment in these big meatpacking plants. I'm going to estimate that 20% of the high-end skilled tradespeople, designers, welders, millwrights who built complicated equipment were either autistic, ADHD, or dyslexic. And I'm saying that absolutely serious. And that's because we had skilled trades in the class. And the worst things the schools ever did 20 years ago was taking out all those hands-on classes. And we're actually losing skills. There's things that we don't make anymore in food processing, and we have to import it from Europe now.
And so do you think that some of those people that you met in the plants and everything, were they probably special needs kids that their parents didn't even realize they had a disability and they just grew up?
Well, they were just the kind of poor students, but they excelled at something like welding. I know a guy who owns a large metal fabrication company, and he's a stutterer. He was a horrible student. He took a welding class. He started making things and selling them, and now he owns a big company that makes fabricated metal products. And he's just as autistic as he could be. And then when I go to autism meetings, I'm running into grandparents that find out they're on the spectrum and the kids get diagnosed. But one of the problems you've got with autism, since they changed the labels in 2013, is you're going all the way from the Silicon Valley programmer, what's been out there, to somebody who can't dress themselves, and you've got the same name put on it. And people get kind of, trapped in that.
That is confusing. So you have so much education, a bachelor's degree, you've got a master's degree, you've got your doctorate. Was all of the school easy for you?
Well, I had a terrible time with math. I was one of these kids that couldn't do algebra, and I managed to get out of it. And I got out of it because in '67 it wasn't the national required class. And I'm concerned that draconian algebra requirement is screening the visual thinking kids like me out of something like a skilled trade or an art career. And I discussed this in my book, The Autistic Brain. The book's called The Autistic Brain, Temple Grandin and Richard Panik. And I discussed some of the science behind different ways that people think. There's actually research that supports that. And we need our visual thinkers. And we have a gigantic shortage right now of things like heating and air conditioning, mechanics, welders, plumbing, electrical, huge shortage. These jobs will never go away. You'll have a job for life.
Well, and I'm with you. I had a horrible time with algebra in high school. It was probably one of my worst classes ever, so I totally understand that. We are coming up to a break, and we will continue with Dr. Grandin after this. We're going to continue to talk about the autism going into like the workplace and how to have children live independently. So stay with us. This podcast will be on the website in about a week in a replay in case you have other family members that want to listen to it. This is Pamela D. Wilson on The Caring Generation. You are with me live on the BBM Global Network, Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. Stay with me. We'll be right back after this break.
Tune into It's All About You with host Dr. Martha Latz, a lively weekly broadcast on BBM Global Network, one of the most empowering shows for time-starved, overscheduled multitaskers. The professional expertise of Dr. Latz is directly available live every Thursday at 1 p.m. to answer and address concerns about relationships, life transitions of career, meeting, dating, and committed relationships. It's All About You with Dr. Latz will expand your understanding of current concerns across your relationships by broadening and expanding possible solutions in developing skills for mutually desired outcomes. Dr. Martha's expertise is as a licensed marriage and family therapist, life, transition coach, and all things to do with communication at work, home, and with friends. Check out her website at auniquetherapycenter.com.
There are artists, and then there's Alice Asmar. This award-winning artist has spent her entire life devoted to her artistic pursuits and has had a lifelong fascination with American Indians of the southwestern United States. Her book, Dance to the Great Spirit, showcases her drawings and paintings inspired by sacred rituals of the Pueblo Indians, and 4 of her lithographs are in permanent collection at the National Museum of American History and the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. She is one of 4 artists in the United States States to win a Woolley Fellowship for study in Paris at l'École des Beaux-Arts and has been featured in numerous publications. She's exhibited at the world's most prestigious museums and galleries and recently won a 20-year service award from the Burbank City Council and the inaugural art competition of the Foundation of the United States in Paris.
Visit www.asmarart.com, www.aliceasmarinternational.com, and email Alice at aliceasmar@aol.com.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert. I'm your host. You're listening to the Caring Generation radio program for caregivers and aging adults, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network, Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. We're back to continue our conversation with Dr. Temple Grandin. Dr. Grandin, let's talk about the workplace and how do supervisors train or communicate with these, I guess I would call them highly skilled tradespeople, when there's like this social skills gap that you talk about?
Well, you get social. One of the reasons why the grandfathers had jobs is because in the 50s and 60s, social skills were taught in a much more structured manner. So they learned business social. Now, in working with people with autism in the workplace, you just need clear instructions on what you're supposed to do. And when social snafus are made, be explained, take them in private, explain what they did wrong. But I've been out to Silicon Valley. Half those programmers are probably on the autism spectrum. I strongly recommend teaching a child how to work before they graduate from high school. Mother got me a sewing job when I was 15. Then I went away to a boarding school. I ran the horse barn for 3 years. Very important to get job skills. Now, right now, churches are closed because we can't have crowds. But for 11 and 12-year-olds, a volunteer job at a church was excellent choice because they've got to learn how to do a task outside the home on a schedule. And as soon as they get to be legal age, they need to get jobs and learn how to keep them.
That is a great job. That leads to my next question. So parents who are trying to transition children from, they're in school, they need to work, live independently, and then move out of the home. Does it happen over a period of time? What's the best way to make that happen?
Well, one thing that helped me is I was away at a boarding school, so going away to college wasn't such a big shock. But the thing I can't emphasize enough is learning how to keep and hold the job before they graduate from high school. Otherwise, they do what service providers call jumping off the service cliff. Things work best when you have a gradual transition between things. So we don't have paper routes anymore, but then we need to have a volunteer job be a substitute paper route, maybe pay them a little bit for that. I had an allowance when I was a child, so I learned what I could buy with 50 cents. I could buy 5 comics, but if I wanted a 69-cent airplane, I had to save for 2 weeks. That was an important thing I was learning in elementary school, to learn about money. Those are easy things to teach. And again, I want to emphasize, autism has this huge range from, brilliant scientists and artists. And the thing I want to ask is, what would happen to someone like Michelangelo today? He was a 6th grade dropout.
Wow.
Where would Michelangelo be in today's school system? That's very well documented, except they just said at age 12 he quit school. He did not want to learn how to write business documents in Latin.
That's
amazing. I want you to just think about that. Jane Goodall did her famous work on a 2-year secretarial degree.
Was Jane Goodall autistic?
I'm not going to say she's autistic. I'm going to say that she did her famous work with a 2-year secretarial degree, the equivalent to community college degree in secretarial science.
That's amazing. So for
Would
parents,
that be possible today? I'm only going to talk about stuff that's absolutely documented.
Yeah, no. So what recommendations would you give then? So for parents who have children on the other end where they're struggling in school and they, they got to push them to go work and they may not have the abilities to do that. How would you talk to those parents to say, don't give up, keep trying? I'm
going to have to find out what the child's capable of doing. Okay, probably, is the child verbal? Can the child dress himself? I'd have to ask a whole lot of questions. There's a tendency, especially with autism labeled, overgeneralized because it's such a broad label, going from very, very severely disabled and not being able to dress themselves to somebody who ought to be programming computers. And the other problem you've got with some of the nonverbals is they actually have a locked-in syndrome. And when they learn to type independently, they discuss problems with controlling movement, with sensory scrambling, and there's some good books to read, first-person accounts of nonverbal individuals who type independently. My two favorites are Tito's Mukapatahe, How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? It's called How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? And the other one is the sequel book to The Reason I Jump. It's a book that Noki wrote when he was an adult, and he talks about not being able to control movements.
So it sounds to me like parents should never, ever give up. I mean, it sounds like there's always something that children can learn and should do if the parents are persistent enough.
You have to figure out what they can do. Stephen Hawking, right before he died, told the New York Times, concentrate on the things your disability doesn't prevent you from doing well. And he could do math in his head super well. Look at what they can do. Also, I'd have to ask the parents a lot of questions before I could recommend anything. I'm not going to recommend somebody who can't dress themselves get a job at a tech company, unless they could do some math in their head really well.
Well, and we never know that. So what keeps you going? You're very passionate. You continue to speak. You continue to advocate. What keeps you going? What inspires you?
Well, work's kind of my life. And when I have a parent say to me that they went to one of my lectures or they read one of my books, I have a book for younger kids called The Way I See It. It's my most basic autism book. It's called The Way I See It. And a parent might say that one of my lectures or books helped their kid get out and get a job and be successful. That makes me happy.
And do you find that the parents need as much support as the children to work through these challenges?
Well, and then some parents that have, see, the problem with autism is you've got such a big range from an honors student where nobody's bothered to teach them how to shop to a nonverbal individual with very severe behavior problems where it's impossible for the family to do a normal thing like go to a movie or go out to dinner. And by the time I was 5 and 6 years old, we could do things like Sunday dinner at Granny's and not have I was able to do it. But there might be another individual where that wouldn't be possible.
And you were on the board of the Autism Society. Is that a good place for people to go to find out about sources of information and education?
I would recommend looking up online, local autism support groups. It's really good for parents to get together and talk to other parents. That'd be the first thing I'd recommend. And since this is broadcasting all over the country, you're just going to have to look it up and see what is local that you could go to.
Okay, that is a great advice. Dr. Grandin, I cannot thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your experience. I'm going to make sure that this gets out everywhere on social media. Up next, we'll continue to talk about coordinating care and support for special needs adults. Follow me on social media on Facebook, watch my videos, and share posts. My Facebook page is PamelaDWilson.page. On Twitter, I'm Caregiving Speak, and Instagram, Wilson Pamela D. This is Pamela D. Wilson, your host. You're listening to The Caring Generation live on the BBM Global Network Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. Stay with me. We'll be right back after this break.
MJ Dammit is the owner of Expect to Be Empowered, a company whose specialty is empowering people to live their best life by following their heart and accepting themselves unconditionally. After studying and making personal changes, MJ now focuses on giving others tools for self-empowerment. She provides individual and group workshops for people who are physically, emotionally, and spiritually blocked. Inspired by her work at Expect to Be Empowered, MJ authored the book Waves of Blue Light, Heal the Heart and Free the Soul, with accompanying empowerment cards. She is a Spirit Book of the Year Gold Medal Living Now Book Award winner. And her book is a #1 Amazon bestseller in spirituality and was a 2012 Gold Medal winner, recognized as the Living Now Spirit Book of the Year. An inspirational speaker, MJ will show you how you can repurpose every area of your life Your life did not just happen to you. You chose it, which means you can change it. Visit www.expecttobeempowered.com or call 866-264-8024.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert. I'm your host. You're listening to the Caring Generation radio program for caregivers and aging adults, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network, Channel 100, and TuneIn Radio. Let's continue to talk about coordinating care and support for special needs adults, adult children with disabilities who do need more help. So not those on the end of the spectrum, like Dr. Temple Grandin talked about, who are amazing engineers, but children who are going to need lifetime care and support. And I'll talk about these from two very different perspectives. One being the court-appointed guardian for adults with disabilities who need help making all the decisions, so healthcare, financial, living decisions. And the second perspective as the medical and financial power of attorney for adults with disabilities who need a little bit of support, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of support. Both of these situations are very different, but again, these are people who do need help. So let's talk about the power of attorney situation first for special needs adults who are higher functioning. So meaning that they can dress and change themselves and go to the store and do things like that, and they really have an opportunity to get out and work. The world of developmental disabilities, if you're a caregiver, you know, has its own terminology. And there's a lot of terms and definitions that relate to children and adults with disabilities. I'll include a link in the show transcript where you can search these terms and acronyms, but you're likely to hear IDT, Interdisciplinary Team, CCB, which is Community Centered Board, IP, Individual Plan, and many others. So becoming familiar with these terms, it can feel like learning a foreign language. As the parents of special needs adults, you've learned or are learning that communication skills are very important. Some adults with disabilities have special communication patterns, either verbally, behaviorally, or both. For example, one of my clients who was not always honest, but sometimes if he didn't want to get somebody in trouble, he wouldn't give the whole story. So if he shook my hand and said, "That's a deal," I knew that I could rely on the information that he provided, or I knew that he agreed to follow through and do something. Some special needs adults are particularly vulnerable to the influence of others. Being vulnerable happens more often when adults with disabilities look like adults because of their age, but their developmental level places them much lower. For example, I had clients who were 50 years old who may have had a cognitive level of the age of 6, or a client at age 30 who may have functioned at a level of age 12. And when I say cognitive level in both of these cases, I'm talking about educational levels related to math skills, reading skills, communication, interpersonal skills, ability to problem solve, and IQ. It's essential to realize that adults with disabilities who need more help are different in many aspects that relate to everyday functioning, the ability to learn, the ability to achieve, in school, and social skills. Providing care and oversight means that parents have to use every skill at their disposal, as Dr. Grandin mentioned, and to spend time to focus on the strengths and develop plans to focus on those strengths and address the weaknesses. There are gaps for everybody, even people who don't have disabilities. And some special needs adults can be harmed, or they can make poor decisions that have unintended consequences if they don't have enough support. Let's talk about the transition from school to employment. When children graduate from high school, by the way, some graduate and others drop out, they may continue on to college and they may seek employment. Seeking employment places some adults with disabilities in an uncomfortable world. Many of my clients, depending on their level of functioning and ability, had difficulty adjusting. Special needs adults, my clients included, some of them became accustomed to not working to improve their skills or try to get a job, which Dr. Grandin mentioned is not the right way to go about this. But I had many clients who said, well, why should I do that? Why should I work? Why should I learn? And it was because by the time I got involved with them, if they were 30, 40, or 50, their parents never talked to them about working or going to school or any of those possibilities. Their parents taught them to be accustomed to be taken care of. And so it's not easy. I worked with professionals to create behavioral plans. My recommendation is if you can become associated with the Office of Vocational Rehab, it's VR. It's a federal program to state program that helps people with physical and mental disabilities get a job and keep a job. It's best to become involved in that program in high school, like Dr. Grandin talked about, so that you can look at all the options. Some special needs adults can attend the appointments. Others will need reminders and transportation. And another consideration then is the transition to going out in the community and living in the community. Some special needs adults that I worked with attended schools with their peers. Others were in mainstream classes. And many of my clients, by the time I got involved, we either got them into a group home or got them into a living situation so that they could be more independent within the safety net of living with other special needs adults or in the supervision of house staff. A lot of special needs adults continue to live with their parents. And there's a downside to that because in some situations, I became a successor when a parent died and the child had been living in the home for a number of years. And that was a very, very hard adjustment. The reality is that one parent eventually, we are all going to die. And then what? It's better to prepare your children for that so that they can make the adjustment before you're gone. So the question to ask is, who are you protecting if you're not looking at helping your child to live independently? Your child or yourself? It can take time. It can take a lot of patience, days, weeks, months, but it's definitely worth the effort. I've seen what happens when it doesn't work out, and it's very, very hard for that child. We are going to continue to talk about life transitions for special needs adults after this break. Whether you are that parent who is the power of attorney or a court-appointed guardian, we'll talk about the challenges and ways to go about it. And again, seek local help. Check out your local Autism Society. Check out Voc Rehab. Check out all of the programs that are available for special needs children because they are certainly out there. And it can feel like learning a foreign language to get into the system and learn the acronyms and all of the paperwork that you have to fill out. But I've known people who do it. One of my best friends has made amazing progress with a child that she has who is working and really doing a great job and succeeding on her own. Please share The Caring Generation and my website, PamelaDWilson.com, with other caregivers that you know. This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert. I'm your host. You're with me on The Caring Generation, live from the BBM Global Network, Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com.
Are you looking for employment and live in Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties? Jobs Annex is the place for you. Are you an employer looking to fill a position or quite a few positions in Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties? Jobs Annex is for you. Employers, JobsAnnex.com is your resource for career-minded people. JobsAnnex.com is the convenient place for job seekers and employers to hook up and move forward. Jobs Annex has been serving Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties for over 14 years. Jobs Annex is a former employment search firm. We've evaluated many thousands of resumes, and we understand what employers want and what job applicants need to be successful in their interviews. At Jobs Annex, we provide you with the tools to tell your story for free. Our resources at JobsAnnex.com will help each applicant construct an award-winning resume, an eye-catching cover letter, and key interview questions to ask in various types of interviews. Best of all, it's free. JobsAnnex.com. That's JobsAnnex.com.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert. This is The Caring Generation, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. In the last part, we talked about adults with disabilities who have the ability to graduate from high school and work themselves into the work world and even live independently in a group setting with peers or in other supportive living situations. Let's talk about special needs adults who don't have the ability to work. These were some of my clients. What type of support is available for adults with disabilities who need greater support from parents who might be designated that court-appointed guardian? Consistency and routine are very important to help adults with disabilities remain physically and mentally active. There are local groups where you live who support adults with disabilities. In this situation, many of the parents investigate programs. You might be familiar with names like the ARC, the Developmental Disabilities Resource Center, Bethesda Lutheran Communities, Housing Options, and Dungarvan. I worked with a lot of these organizations, and many of these programs work with the state Medicaid programs. You can contact your county Medicaid office for more information if you're not already involved with them. You can also check with the National Conference of State Housing Agencies for information about affordable housing and HUD housing in your area. Their website is ncsha.org. My recommendation when you are looking at agencies to work with you and your children is to interview several agencies and make sure that you're comfortable with their programs. Warning, there is no perfect program out there. Make sure that you are pleased with the staff who administer the program and that you feel that you can work with the program manager assigned to you. I say this because these are kind of the situations where managers at community boards or community agencies can sometimes feel they know more about your child than you do, and it's unfortunate because these situations can become adversarial where that manager attempts to turn adults with disabilities against you, the parents. Triangulation happens in cases where special needs adults who are even age 40 or 50 who have a low IQ level, the care managers kind of cause problems where they kind of trick these adults into saying that parents are abusive, really, and the children don't even understand what the word abusive means. And I know because I've been there. So parents have to be very careful about vulnerable children with disabilities and making sure that they're not manipulated by staff at community agencies or even other residents. There are a lot of good agencies out there, just as there are some not so good ones. On the idea of community housing, community agencies work with host home contractors or providers. It's up to you to interview these host home providers. Ask for references. Go see the house. Interview that provider and ask the hard questions. How long have you been a provider? On average, how long do residents live in your home? Have you ever been cited for abuse? How often do you disagree with family members of those residents who live in your home? You want to know everything before making a decision. Some of the host home providers go above and beyond. They're amazing. Some host providers have really good intentions, but they don't have the patience to care for adults with disabilities. And removing your child from a host home, it can be emotional distressing, but necessary. When I was a court-appointed guardian, I had to do this, and I helped my clients do this too. remove their children from abusive host home situations that were later investigated. Some parents of adults with disabilities are guardians and they don't understand all of their legal responsibilities. There is definitely hope for that. But you have to realize to some of these host home providers, your child is a paycheck. Some, again, are amazing. Others are not. I don't want to make you hesitant to look into group home situations, but I do want you to be aware that not all community organizations are the same. Keep searching until you find one that you are very comfortable working with. Verify the information, interview the providers. Think about whether you would want that person to take care of you. If not, it's probably not the right person to care for your child with disabilities. Then on the other hand, parents who have had children living with them in their home for many years and they age, so they're 60 years old, they're 70 years old. Sometimes a brother or a sister can take over the responsibility of caring for a sibling with disabilities, but sometimes they don't realize the significant responsibility. And in time, that brother or sister may realize that they can't continue to be that caregiver. It's okay because there are good group homes out there. Sometimes as they age, the behaviors of adults with disabilities can be threatening because sometimes some of these disabilities have a little bit of Alzheimer's or dementia that are associated. As Dr. Grandin talked about, transitioning at a younger age is so much better, and you can do it over a span of time. Because the hard part is the consideration of who cares for special needs adults when parents pass away and when brothers and sisters can't take over that primary responsibility of being a caregiver. This is called family succession planning for care, and it's where you can appoint professionals to serve as a financial power of attorney, a trustee, a court-appointed guardian. It's never too early to think about having those backup plans or to create them because none of us want to think about the fact that we are going to die and our children are going to live beyond us. I served for many parents for whom that happened, and they were very good situations because the parents planned for that type of care. If you establish a trust for your children, you can appoint a trustee and a trust protector, which is a good idea. The role of that trust protector is to provide oversight of the trustee and the operations of the trust. And so in situations where children are disabled and they need a lot of care oversight, you have somebody managing that money, but you also have another person who gets reporting and who can make sure that everything is going okay because, as in all situations, sometimes there are people who may not spend the money according to your wishes. It's always good to have somebody take a look at that. And you can contact what is called a special needs planning attorney for more information about trusts and trust protectors and how to set that up. It's very important. And also the elder law and the probate attorneys are the ones who do the power of attorney documents and the guardianships. We are on our way to another break. When we return, we'll talk about sex, having children, and marriage, subjects that cause snags in the relationship, sometimes between special needs adults and parents, when there is a significant difference in how the special needs adults want to integrate into society and live their lives, and when the parents have significant concerns about the children's ability to do all of that. Next week, our topic is helping elderly parents make decisions. We'll talk about power of attorney then. Visit my website, PamelaDWilson.com, for helpful information for caregivers and aging adults. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, your host. This is The Caring Generation, live from the BBM Global Network, Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Attorney Renee Marie Smith is changing the way we sell real estate. She wrote a series of books called My Short Sale Guru Guides for all real estate practitioners. Whether you're a homeowner wanting to understand the process, an agent who has been handling short sales for years, or an industry analyst wanting to know how short sales impact your business, Renee uses her vast real estate experience to take a comprehensive look at the recent market phenomena while relaying it in an easy-to-understand format. Through her company, Smith Title Services, Renee has counseled thousands of short sale participants and processed in excess of 1,000 short sales. Her knowledge is transformational for real estate professionals and laymen alike, and her live presentations provide people the opportunity to ask specific questions about their issues. Buy her books and schedule her to speak at your next event. Visit www.smithtitleservices.com or call 305-705-3428 or email her at renee@smithtitleservices.com. Isn't it time to sell your property today? Learn the My Short Sale Guru way.
According to the American Nurses Association, there are approximately 3.5 to 4 million nurses in the United States. So where do all these nurses work? What kind of roles do they have? What kind of education and training help to prepare them for so many different settings? What kind of impact do nurses have on patient outcomes? The World Health Organization has announced that 2020 will be the Year of the Nurse, honoring the 200th birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale. An international initiative called Nursing Now is underway to raise the profile of nursing. The National Academy of Medicine has convened a committee to create the Future of Nursing 2020 to 2030 that will focus on how the nursing profession can create a culture of health, reduce health disparities, and improve the health and well-being of the U.S. population. Learn more and join Joyce Batchelor on All About Nursing, Wednesdays from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on the BBM Global Network. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert. I'm your host. This is the Caring Generation radio program for caregivers and aging adults, live on the BBM Global Network, Channel 100 and TuneIn Radio. We're back to talk about sex, having children, and marriage between special needs adults. Research by Sobsey and Brewer confirms that women with learning disabilities are 4 to 10 times more likely to experience physical violence, sexual violence, and homicide from their spouses or sexual partners than women without learning disabilities. I can confirm this through my experience with the special needs adults that I helped. Let's talk about this relative to having and raising children. So special needs adults sometimes will get pregnant and they will have their children adopted out. But those who choose not to place children for adoption, according to research and facts, have a very difficult task in learning how to care for and raise children because there is a difficulty in positive feedback and social skills. Sometimes parents are very direct to young children and not nurturing. Parents with learning disabilities sometimes have a high probability of having their children removed by Child Protective Services, placed in care, and then adopted. It's not that special needs adults who have children intentionally harm their children. They just don't know how to care for babies. And then we have the effect on the babies and children being raised by parents who aren't empathetic, don't know how to motivate them, don't know how to give them positive communication skills. Parents who have special needs adults who want to have children should talk about the pros and cons of subjects like sex, having children, and marriage, even though they're very uncomfortable subjects. Sometimes counseling and support systems can provide insights for special needs adults that may be seen as less biased than the opinions of parents. In situations where parents are the guardian, guardianship and family court cases can cross, sometimes probate and family law, and that is challenging because They have different guidelines and different circumstances. If you come to be in this situation, make sure that you choose probate and family law attorneys who have experience with your particular type of situation, whether it's a pregnancy or a marriage, so that you are not throwing money down the drain. The client that I was guardian for actually had a family trust that she talked about with a male care staff. That male caregiver initiated a sexual relationship with her, had her sign a marriage license, filed it without a ceremony. Fortunately, my client called me and told me that she got married. It took me 12 months to go through probate and family law court to have that marriage annulled. It was quite an ordeal, but as you can see, there are so many circumstances that come up when you are a parent of an adult with disability, and the situations can be challenging, but don't give up. There are always solutions. You want to keep going, as Dr. Temple Grandin said, and work with your children, work to help them learn how to work to get out and live in host home situations if at all possible, because this is the goal, helping your children become as independent as possible so that they can live after you are gone. Next week, we are going to talk about helping elderly parents make decisions. That will include discussions about how to get power of attorney for elderly parents when needed, if they have cognitive disabilities, or if you are just that caregiver who is helping out day to day and you see that they need a little bit more help. I thank you so much for being proactive and interested in caregiving, aging, health, and well-being. I thank Dr. Temple Grandin for joining us. She is an amazing individual. You can visit her website. It's templegrandin.com. Please follow and share the Caring Generation radio show on my website, PamelaDWilson.com. Listen to the podcast. Thank you all for being the amazing caregivers that you are and the assistants for helping your families. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. Join me on the Caring Generation next Wednesday evening. Invite your family and friends to join us. God bless you. Sleep well tonight. Have a fabulous day tomorrow and a great week until we are together again.
Tune in each week for the Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson. Come join the conversation and see how Pamela can provide solutions and peace of mind for everyone. Here on Pamela D. Wilson's The Caring Generation.